Hello and welcome once again to the PokerTracker 4 7-Day Orientation. My name is Sky Matsuhashi of SmartPokerStudy.com and we are glad you're here for Day 4, Editing a HUD. Let's do this. A quick itinerary for the video. Again, do as you consume. So while we're working in the HUD profile editor, which you can see on the screen right there, you have yours open and you're clicking right along with me because you're actually going to develop your very first HUD today. Before you do that, you're going to have to design your own HUD, and I'm going to show you a simple design that I came up with, and this might give you some ideas for your own HUD designs. Next, we're going to duplicate the default PokerTracker 4 HUD, and I'll show you how, but duplicating a HUD and then editing it, that is the easiest way to make a HUD. So much easier than making one from scratch. We're going to move and add statistics to the HUD to turn it into the HUD that we want to follow our own design. I'm going to show you the various properties for the items in the HUD, and we're actually going to create one color range for the stat VPIP. And I'll give you 2 action steps at the end to help you take action, create your HUD, and use it on the felt. Alrighty, so before you actually get to work creating your HUD or editing an existing HUD, you might as well design it first just to save you some time and noodle on the placement of the various elements of the HUD. You could see this is the design that we're doing today, and we're going to call it My First HUD. We have the note editor in the top left, then player name, the number of hands you have on the player, VPIP PFR, next line, call preflop 2-bet and 3-bet. Those are next to each other because they're related, right? You open raise, somebody can call you or they can 3-bet. Seeing both of these numbers together gives you a pretty decent gauge of how they're going to respond to your open raise. Next is raise first in and 2-bet, fold to 3-bet. As a smart, aggressive player, you're probably 3-betting a lot of players, especially when they're going to fold to your 3-bet after they raise. So you want to see how often they raise first in, and then you want to see how often they 2-bet and then fold to 3-bet. These are critical next to each other because they're going to help you pull off more 3-bet bluffs. Over here, we got C-bet flop and C-bet the turn, and we want to see how often our opponents fold to flop C-bet and fold to turn C-bet. This helps us to make profitable C-bet bluffs and double barrel turn bluffs as well. So you can use this for your own inspiration. Just to let you know, this is the one we are creating today. Oh, background colors, and I'll show you how to do background colors. And these 2 stats I always enlarge them to make them stand out to me. And I'll show you how to do that as well. But you can use this idea as inspiration for your own HUD. Alrighty, to get this HUD ball rolling, we need to open up the HUD profile editor. So click the HUD menu up top and edit HUD profiles. It'll take a sec for this to pop up, but this is the page that you're going to go to duplicate, create new HUDs, edit HUDs, make any kind of changes that you want. In the profile, scroll on down to default. So now you can see that default HUD that we've been working off of for now. Instead of creating a brand new HUD, like I said, it's always easy to duplicate it and then edit it. So hit duplicate profile, give it a name, My First HUD, and you could choose cash or tournament. We're going to keep it cash for now. Once it creates the new HUD and you see the HUD editor profile reset, hit OK. What that does is that's going to actually save that new HUD that you created within the system. And then now we can assign it to a table so that we could see what that HUD looks like as we develop it. So once again, go to HUD. And remember to use the pause button on the video so that you can click along and follow along with everything I'm doing. Edit HUD profiles. And then let's scroll down to My First HUD. So there's old reliable, the default that we're used to working with, but it's our new profile here. Now, anytime I'm working on editing HUD, I like to open a table, and that allows me to see the HUD change or to see how it develops as I make my changes. And of course, we're going to need our trusty HUD blueprint right down here. So we want to edit this HUD to match this one. Before we actually get to editing, let me talk about the different elements up here. First, there's different groups to your HUD. The one that we're on right now is the player stats, and you can see that around the table, stats on all the players. The second one is the table stats. Now this one is set for live average stack size, which you can see right here. Average stack of the table, $11. Let's go back to player stats. Now, this player stats group, it is assigned to everyone, but it could be assigned to everyone but hero if I wanted a special hero HUD, or if I don't want to see a HUD panel for hero at all, it could be gone. Hero only, or the table averages. Now, that's what the table stats is, the table averages, but we'll keep this for everyone. Now, you see within the default HUD, you see that / separator. We can actually delete it to get rid of it if we want. We can even make it a couple of colons if we want to do something like that. Whatever you want, your style is your own. Let's keep it right there for now. Actually, honestly, I do not like a separator at all, so we'll delete it. But if you would like the separator, you can keep it. This is how you can change the color of the separator, should you want one. Now, padding is 0. This is the space between all the HUD stats. Or padding is 1, I mean to say. If we make padding 0, watch what happens down here when I type in 0. The stats got a little bit closer. Watch what happens when I type in 20. It puts a lot of pixels between each stat, spreads things out. I personally like it 0. I like the HUD to be as closely grouped together as possible to take up less space on the table, which is really helpful, especially for a full ring table. Oh, what I forgot to mention was, now that we've opened up our table, after we have My First HUD saved, click the icon, change profile, go down to My First HUD. So right now, this is the HUD. We've made some changes, right? But we haven't actually applied any of the changes yet. Let's go ahead and do that now. So remember, we took away the separator. We made the padding 0 instead of 1. So we're going to see this HUD shrink up, and those separators are going to disappear as soon as it repopulates. And there you go, right? So that's after making a few changes. Now, background, you can see there's kind of a black background here. Let's make it fully solid. There's your black background to where you cannot see anything behind it. Or you can go totally clear so you can see everything behind it. Personally, I like to keep it where it is. I like it semi-solid right there. Now, the last part of this section up here is display type. Normal is what we see right now. There's lower opacity until mouse over. Now, this is great, especially if you have a really big HUD. And on a full ring table, if it covers up players' names and stuff, that's kind of a pain, right? But when you have lower opacity until mouse over, you can see the HUD is basically gone. When you hover the mouse, bam, pops up, all the numbers are right there invisible. Remove the mouse, now everything on the table is clear. Personally, I like normal, right? So we'll just keep it here for now. I'll apply it in a little bit. We don't have to wait again for anything. So now what we're going to do, let's start moving and adding stats as necessary to get to our blueprint, our designed HUD. So you can see I got the player notes right here. Next is player name, number of hands. So all you do, because some of these things are already here, you just click, hold, and then drag it up. You see that little arrow that pops up right there? That means this stat will be moved to the right of the notes. Bam, player name. Number of hands right here. Move it up here. Click and drag. Nice and simple, right? Now you can see I like VPIP and I like PFR. So these are going to be the 5 items on the top line. Next, you can see I have a little space down here. Actually, let's turn on Arrange in Grid. Now you can see it arranges in a grid where everything is nicely in line with everything else. I have a space down here below notes, right? So what we're going to do is hit the plus. Now this is what you hit to add a stat, add a text, add the note editor, which we already have one right here, or add a horizontal line separator, or add an entirely new line. We want to add a little bit of text. Now for the text, I just put a space. Watch what happens. Now this text box appears here. Click and drag it to the left of this. Now bam, the note editor there. Now there's an open space with one space of text. We're actually going to do that for both of these here. So let's hit the plus, add a new line that gives us a third line down below, and let's repeat the process. Plus, add text, space bar, okay, and then bam, there's that. Now there is actually, you can't see it right now because there's no stats on this third line, but there are 2 blank spaces directly below the note editor. So what's up next? Call preflop 2-bet, then 3-bet. Now, the default HUD did not have call preflop 2-bet, so we need to add that. Hit the plus, add a statistic, and search for it. Call PF, and there it is, call preflop 2-bet. Simply double click it, and bam, it's added for you. Hit OK, and now click and drag to where you want it. Call preflop 2-bet. Next is 3-bet. And then next is C-bet on the flop. Great, right there. Now, live amount BBs, I don't really need to see that. I like to view my tables, and the sites that I play on allow you to view the player stacks in big blinds, so I don't really need this. Now, this is great, though, for tournament play. If you're right now editing, when you duplicated it, if you selected a tournament HUD, it's a great thing to keep this in, because that's very useful for tournaments, especially when blinds are like 800, 1600, some weird numbers that make that math kind of hard. The less brain space you have to devote to converting stack sizes into big blinds, in tournament, it's really going to help you out. But for us, we don't need it, so simply click it and then hit the delete key on your keyboard right there. Bam, that one's gone. So we have C-bet flop, right? But the next one we want is C-bet turn. Let's add that stat. Add a stat. And I already know I want to add fold to turn C-bet as well, right? So let's just look for the word turn. Oh, there's C-bet turn. We need to add this stat. We also want fold to, whoops, I think I passed it. There we go. Oh no. My bad. Fold to T C-bet. I remember now. Fold to turn C-bet. Double click it and it's added. Bam, right there. So we have C-bet turn, C-bet flop. Let's move this one ahead. There we go. C-bet flop, C-bet turn. Now fold to flop C-bet is going to be on the third line. Fold to turn C-bet on the third line as well. But before those, we have raise first in and then 2-bet, fold to 3-bet. Let's add both of those right now. Add statistic. And we're going to have to search for both of these. Raise first in is raise. First in, double click it. You can see it's added right there. And now the next one, 2-bet and then fold to 3-bet. This is better than just fold to 3-bet. You don't necessarily want that, because what's more important to you when you're 3-bet bluffing or 3-betting for value, you want to see how often they raise and then respond to your 3-bet with a fold, right? So fold to PF 3-bet after a raise. There it is. Let's double click it. So we have both of these stats in right now. Hit OK. But we wanted these, of course, to the left. And this is kind of how I group my various HUDs that I create. We have pre-flop stats here and then post-flop stats over here. And then the most important useful things up in the top line. That's generally how I create stuff, right? So that's it for, we've created the HUD. It's exactly what we want. You can see those two spaces are right here, but we have these stats directly underneath the player name. So now we're good to go to make some item property changes. All right, so you can see on the blueprint down here, player name, number of hands, but VPIP and PFR, they have a larger font size, right? So this is how I do it. Click on VPIP, hit the control key and click on PFR. So you're hitting two stats at once. Or up here, you can click on VPIP, hit the control key, click on PFR. Two different ways to select the same stats. Now, the font size, it's at size 8 right now. Click on these little 3 dots. And let's make it 12. Let's see what that looks like. Hey, nice. Now the VPIP and PFR stand out even more. I'm loving this. Now, I'm so used to seeing VPIP and PFR, especially large sizes, I don't really need that prefix of PR anymore. So let's delete it. On VPIP, let's delete. Oh, actually, it took them both off right now. So good. Our VPIP and PFR have now grown in size, quicker and easier to spot. Now down here, C-bet flop, turn, fold to flop, fold to turn, C-bet. I like all of these to have a different background. Kind of helps it stand out to me that it is, or that they are, post-flop statistics. So let's make the black background, instead of black, let's go with like this teal color. I like that one there. I mean, I have a light blue here, and it could be a light blue if you want, but I like this one down here. Now, the background is set to that, but transparency is set to true. Just double click it, makes it false. Bam! Now we have our post-flop stats, C-betting on the top, fold to c-bet on the bottom, flop, turn, as you can see. Nicely organized, right? This is what we want out of our HUD, for sure. Now over here, you can see I have these pre-flop stats color-coded in gray. Let's do this to differentiate the two different lines. These two, let's give them a lighter gray, a darker gray right here. And then double click the transparency, make it false. There's the darker gray. These ones on the bottom, let's go slightly lighter in gray. So instead of that one to the far left, let's go 2 over right here. Kind of differentiates, once we turn the transparency false, differentiates the two. Now you see how all of the statistics are grouped to the left of the columns. One thing that I really like is just centering everything. So I'm hitting the control key right now while I select each individual stat. The control key on my keyboard is down. That just allows me to select multiple ones at a time so I don't have to do this work over and over with the various stats. So I've selected all of these right now. Scroll on down. Alignment within the grid. Left, alignment, now center. Watch what happens down here when we move it to center. Bam, everything just kind of centers. It looks nice and lovely now. Now, I'm loving this HUD. This is actually what I want out of my HUD. Right here, I wouldn't make any other changes. So let's hit apply. And we'll see what it looks like once it changes here. Great, looking good. Let's move these around a little bit because we expanded the size. This is going to fit a little bit better. Holy cow. I'm loving this My First HUD right here. Change profile. Let's set this profile as default for the table type. Let's also save the layout so they're locked in place right here. I'm loving this HUD. I would imagine you would too, right? Player name, number, VPIP, PFR, nice and big. Post-flop here, pre-flop here. So awesome. Now, I know we removed some stuff or some prefixes, and you can add or remove them all that you want. You could add even down here, this was raised first in, you could put as a prefix for just this stat, let's put RFI and a space, and then you can see, bam, RFI comes in here. This is a 3-bet, so this is raised first in, fold to 3-bet, this is call, and then 3-bet themselves. So it's up to you how you want to add prefixes, or there are even options for suffixes down here, if you'd like. Now, the last thing I want to show you when it comes to properties are color coding ranges. And we're going to do this very specifically for one range in particular, VPIP. So select VPIP and go to color ranges. These color ranges change the color of the stat based on the percentage. So I'm going to give you the color coding that I really like. From 0 to 12, I give this a red color. Now, what this tells me is that this is a really tight player. If they're only VPIpping a total of 0 to 12%, they don't play many hands at all, right? So when they come in and play a hand, because their VPIP is going to be in red, that gives me like a warning sign, right? This guy never plays hands. He's playing a hand now. You've got to be careful. So that's the first color. The second one, I like to go from 12 to 25. And I'll make this one a yellow color. Now, yellow tells me caution, right? 12 to 25 is kind of like tight aggressive players' ranges. They VPIP somewhere in this range, low at 12, high at 25. So I like that yellow right there. Now, from 25 up through 100, I use the green color coding for these players. And this just means that green means go, right? These players are playing so many hands, and the higher it is, the better. VPIP at 25 is green, but VPIP at 40, 45, 75%, that's an even more loose player, or an even looser player, right? Hit OK. So now that we have our color coding in place, let's create a new preset right here. Click New, and we'll do VPIP First HUD. This is the color coding for my first HUD VPIP. So in the future, when I'm creating new HUDs or whatever, if I have the VPIP, I could just pull down from this menu here, the stat VPIP, and it'll automatically assign this color coding to that stat. Let's hit apply. So hopefully you're following along, making ample use of that pause button to give you time to do the things that I'm doing. Now let's see what happens. This will be green. That'll be green. Well, that'll be yellow. Yep. A yellow once again, a green, and then me, because I've only played 4 hands, 0 V-pipping, you see how it's red. So this is how the color ranges work. It gives you a really quick visual cue as to what kind of player you're up against. So I would recommend, on your own, do color coding for PFR, C-betting flop, C-bet turn, fold, 3-betting, raising first in, all this stuff. Now, if you need some help with color coding various statistics, especially when it comes to VPIP and PFR, go to smartpokerstudy.com/player types. I give you some really important, useful information to help you do some color coding, especially for VPIP, PFR, and for 3-bet right there. So once we're done with this, hit OK, and then now your My First HUD is ready for use. Alrighty, I'm sure you saw these 2 action steps coming. Action step number 1 is to create your first HUD. Hopefully you are doing as you consumed through the video and you've already have your first HUD created. But if not, take the time to create your first one. Before action step number 2, play 200 hands today. And the goal with this is you're actually going to use your own HUD. You spent the time, created your own HUD. You've built a better understanding of where the HUD placement or the HUD stats are placed within your HUD. It should be time for you to start using it to exploit your opponents. Actually, not that it should be time, it is time for you to use that HUD. Now, on behalf of PokerTracker 4, this is Sky Matsuhashi saying thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow for day 5 when we discuss the Hold'em hand range visualizer. And I guarantee you're going to absolutely love this aspect of PokerTracker 4.